Hello and welcome to Whole Wealth Wednesday, which is also going to be Travel Tuesday. So, if you've been following, you know that last week I did not do the Travel Tuesday and Whole Wealth Wednesday that I normally do on a weekly basis. And this week I subsequently kind of let it fall by the wayside as well. I felt enormous resistance to it for some reason. And it is now Wednesday night, and it's just about 11 p.m. And I'm like, yeah, I really want to do my whole Wealth Wednesday session for YouTube. And even yesterday, it's like I want to do my session, and yet I just had enormous resistance to it for some reason. And this is what I wanted to just document and point out. It's like when you're already in the flow of things and you do things like you make it a set time and appointment with yourself, it becomes like a habit and it becomes its own momentum. And now last week I was traveling abroad. I was in England, and for the Tuesday and Wednesday, I had the intention to do the master class as I normally do. And I thought this is perfect. It's a perfect like congruence with, you know, the days that I would have time to do it. It's not that I didn't have time. It's more that I didn't really have a my intention was not so strong that I just did it. It's like I was in a space with other people and then or whether I was just in a different environment and but those are all excuses. This is not the issue at all. The issue is my own intent, right? Because I somehow in the back of my mind, I think subconsciously, even though I had the intent, I'm like, it's Travel Tuesday and Whole Wealth Wednesday. And I'm continuing this a weekly journey and weekly habit and weekly commitment to showing up for my masterclass, YouTube online, whatever you want to call this. I simply, I think, really in the subconscious back of my mind, I was like, yeah, but it's kind of like a freebie, right? It's like a what's the word I'm thinking of right now? It's like I can just let it slide this week because it's like kind of like I'm away for this week. It's so whether I do it or not, it's not like the I think also in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe I'll do like a vlog style video for this week because I'm abroad and I was intending also to actually do a bit of vlogging. So show like some behind the scenes content, if you will, or just like actual clips from like in-person moments and like what I'm up to and such as I'm in England for that week. And that did not really happen either. And there were three things for this, and this is more for like observation purposes. It's like, I recognize like there can sometimes be a lot of excuses one makes, right? Why one does not actually do the thing that one has in one's mind. So although I've been keeping up these weekly master classes when I'm just like at home or like in my usual environment or um it's like it's just me, so it's like it's easier to focus when there's not any distractions or other things going on around you, or you don't feel like um maybe self-conscious if you're might be observed by other people. So when I was abroad and when I was in a different environment and when I was also maybe not used to kind of whipping out a camera or like talking to like having like a monologuing and just like sharing something while I'm in a setting that is not totally focused, if you will. Like it's not totally like I feel totally like I'm just in my own cocoon, in my own bubble, which a lot of times in my own place. Yes, I have that luxury of feeling like I can be totally inoculated right now and just do the thing. And so there were three things I noticed with like the vlogging, right? One thing is that I don't have any particular camera equipment or whatnot that I use. In fact, I like have bought like those vlogging type of cameras or different, more like those action style of cameras. And it's like I just never end up using it because I don't like carrying too many things. The only thing I really carry is like my phone. And the thing with this is that like I don't like to use a battery if I'm filming and I'm uh for like behind the scenes content, like doing. Other thing is because I usually do portrait mode. So whether yeah, usually when I just I'm taking photos or videos just on my phone, I'm usually in the habit of doing so in portrait mode rather than flipping it to landscape, which is more for YouTube, right? So there's that, just the orientation of the camera. And then the second thing is, the battery life. If I'm using my phone for so many other things, it's like it doesn't feel as much of a priority. And it doesn't feel like I, it doesn't feel as conducive to be using my phone as well for filming like a bunch of content for YouTube as well. And yes, I use power bank and such and such. But when I'm like on the go and then yeah, so like all of this just sounds like a lot of excuse making, which it really is. And but that's another reason. And then the third thing is just simply that sometimes in the moment, it's like I don't quite know what I'm trying to capture or share. And even spontaneously, I find sometimes like I'm very, very sensitive to my space and environment. So sometimes when I'm out and about and there's like a lot of people, or, it's just obviously you're in public and there's like noise around you, there's distractions and people, and there's just a lot of elements that are not like contained in a way. I find it like, and I'm not wearing like a microphone or anything. And so there's just a lot of elements that even if I were to film clips, which I've done like in the past, like I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. I've always wanted to like document more of like, say, even like my travels or other, been to travel to like, that even that like round the world trip the first round the world trip in 2016, when I took that one-way train ride and whatnot. It's like I always felt like I wish I had documented that and like had a vlog for that on YouTube and whatnot. And it's like part of it is the not having a clear storyline, not having a clear like what am I sharing right now? What am I talking? So like when you turn on the camera and you're capturing something, it's like having this almost like an intent. It's like having a focus or something that actually makes it cohesive, right? Because you don't want to just be filming various clips and then just make it almost like a home movie style vlog. Like my intention is that there is actually an intention behind it, right? So when that intention is not clear, sometimes when even just starting to film can feel like futile in a way. Like, what am I trying to film right now? What am I trying to say? So a lot of times, like in the moment, I'm like, oh, I could film something. Oh, this be, but it's like, well, I don't quite know. So there is something there in all of this as to why I didn't actually just vlog. And then the other thing was I could have also just done my normal like talking to the camera, just like whatever, not necessarily out and about or like showing like real time or like just, like a vlog type of thing, but just the talking to camera and just kind of like doing an update and like a more monologue style, like documenting like what are my thoughts right now, what's going on this week for me, whatnot, just as I'm doing right now. And so like when I was like at my hotel, for example, I'm like, there's so many times when I could have just sat like just done the Travel Tuesday or the Travel when Whole Wealth Wednesday weekly masterclass. And I think I just gave myself like this pass. Like internally, there's this subconscious part of me that's like, I'm giving myself a pass. Like this week doesn't really count. I'm not, whether I do it or not, it's not going to, yeah. And this is where the distinction comes in because sometimes, even though I felt like I was highly committed to it, and in fact, I kept that up for like the whole of December and even into January. It was like when I was abroad, and then that particular week, I was planning to do the Travel Tuesday and the Whole Wealth Wednesday. Like I even have it in like my calendar, and I'm like, okay, this is Travel Tuesday, Whole Wealth Wednesday, and anytime during that day, it's like I can just go ahead and sit down for like an hour or so, and just do an update. It's kind of like almost like a diary entry, right? It's like I don't necessarily write in a journal, but it's like I can just speak to camera and just like share some of my thoughts. And that's what really this is. It's kind of like getting my thoughts out and like actually speaking it aloud because that helps to like articulate and clarify your thoughts and present it in like a container and like a way that a format that actually like a contained format so that the more that you do something is like the more you do something and you can actually watch yourself in re-watch yourself doing that thing, this is where the natural like course corrections occur because you can see yourself from like a more meta perspective. So, sometimes when you're just doing the thing from your lens, your thoughts are like not necessarily the same as when you say you do something and you re-watch it, because in that moment it's almost like you can see a bigger picture and you can see like new ideas come to you and you're like, oh, well, so naturally over time you start to course correct, right? And I notice that sometimes when I rewatch or I look back at like the natural progression of like since I've started posting more YouTube videos and even doing my podcast, like Let the Story Write Itself, which has now become the Serefair Conservatory. So even that like actually became a natural progression now that I think of it. Because last year in February is when I started that podcast. And actually, even before that, I was like, I always wanted to start a podcast. I'm like, I don't actually know how to set this up properly, like how to do like an Apple or Spotify type of thing, like all the RSS feed and who knows. I don't know. I don't really know that lingo and technical stuff. And quite frankly, for the life of me, just did not know. And also, I don't have like the necessarily like, um, yeah, I don't have all the fancy equipment and I don't really felt like I care to necessarily know that. Like, I want to just get started, right? So yeah, so anyways, all this sounds like excuses again, which 100% I agree. There's many like layers of like the thing. It's like why you don't just do the thing can be there's so many things like layers of excuses going on beneath the surface that actually like it could sound like legitimate, like okay, yeah, okay, fine, that's fair, whatever. But who cares if it's fair? You're not doing the thing. There's obviously something that you're choosing not to do. There's obviously something within you like deeper on a subconscious level that is like not actually committed. And so when I started like my Let the Story Write Itself podcast, just very more informally, like I just started on put it on YouTube, right? I would record it on like just on my phone. And yeah, I also have like a what do you call it? I bought like a recording, more like a I don't even know what it's called. It's like an actual mic, but but I stopped using that. Like I was using that for like maybe the first couple months or something. But then when I was like abroad and then I was like, I'm not, I end up just recording on my phone. I'm like, you know what? The simplest way is the best way because the whole point is that I'm just getting the message across and what I need to say. And right now it's obviously still like it's like in its beginning stages. It's nothing professional. It's like quite homegrown, if that makes sense. So it's a podcast, yes, but it's obviously not like to a certain quality, and it's more like me exploring and like determine like finding like honing in my voice and like refining what exactly my message is and what is this company and brand that is the thing that like a lot of my messaging and like the topics that I talk about all revolves around. So it's interesting that like around when was it now that it really yes, November of 2025. So when I started the podcast it was February 2025, and then by November 2025 Let the Story Write Itself evolved into the Serefair Conservatory. So Let the Story Write Itself was like my whole journey becoming Serefair, right? And that was like a decade-long journey. And then it was interesting at the time that I started that podcast, it segued into the new stage and the new evolution and progression of my own journey, which is now actually more building a company, like an actual company and like a business. And that's where the Serefair Conservatory came in. And that was like merging my love for like classical music, classical piano music, and also the decade of classical piano music that I played like from like 5 to 15 years old, right? So this is where the conservatory part comes in. So it's like almost denoting this school formed from the natural progression of Serefair and that whole journey. And that, whether that would have happened, like, it's always interesting. It's interesting and fascinating to my mind. Like, why do I feel pulled to do the podcast? And not only that, but as I'm also just kind of posting online and I'm just like showing up and I'm like, yeah, Sarah Fair is very much a big part of my identity and what led me to like my round the world travels and just the identity, that whole identity is like the solo traveler and existing outside of like the realm of the ordinary and the normal, right? So how this natural progression kind of like segued, in this almost like somehow like a decade long journey that seems so like timed, if that makes sense. Like there's a sense of like a certain timing, that I didn't necessarily plan or like really think of. And then the next thing I know is like I get this internal download. I'm like, just like feeling into it, right? Because that's how my mind operates, like very intuitive, and it's kind of like grasping onto like, what's that feeling? There's like something here that I'm like, it's like there's something here that's like calling me or that's like trying to come through or like, it's like I'm translating from like the ethers into like physical form. And I'm like, Serefair, because Serefair was also something that just came through to my mind, right? I'm like, let the story write itself. That's like also a tagline that came to me in 2015. I'm like, Serefair, let the story write itself. Why not? So all of these things are like just these like lightning bolt ideas of present themselves to me and that inform myself, my identity, and my journey. And that I feel in some ways like whether I'm just showing up and living my life and like maybe sharing things here and there. And, it's really this year that I've become much more like, that's another thing I want to talk about going like 100, like going like, realizing that even as much as you think you know who you are, it's almost like actually sharing about who you are, it's like doing it like 100 times more, 100 times like amplified what you think you're doing now. It's like doing it 100 times more. Because the thing is like you need to repeat yourself so many times to actually build something. If you're building a company, you can't just be like posting like your, you know, la-di-da or something like lackadaisically and just being like, oh, well, I hope people get it. Well, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually want to build a real company and if you actually want to actually be seen or like recognized or known for something, it's almost like showing up repeatedly over and over and over and over again. Hence the weekly podcast, right? I post like 2 podcast episodes a week. And yes, these have kind of like greatly condensed down. And I started doing like podcast episodes that were more like me just kind of speaking and sharing stories and like things of that nature. And I really kind of refined it more to like the core speaking topics so that my podcast episodes are actually not no more than like 3 minutes long, but they're very high potency. They're very high, like specifically focused towards like a very clear intent. And this is really where the Serefair Conservatory was like evolved. Like it's interesting. Like when I just look at the podcast episode, I'm like, how did Let the Story Write Itself become the Serefair Conservatory? And you can actually see like around November is where I shifted my episodes, and I have a bonus episode where I'm like I talk about that um change in focus and how I'm like uh progressing from to like a new lens or like a new form. And like so the whole like the name of it changed, and then just like the presentation of like what I was doing for the podcast also changed. There's like been an evolution, right? And that's just coming like naturally by being open to the pivot and to the change and just like see what's coming in. And like it's very experimental in a way because I never feel like locked into just one thing. I will like change up things here and there and I tweak it, and the next thing I know it becomes this, and then this comes in, right? And then, sometime around December, I'm like, let me start just doing these master classes where I'm just on video. I'm speaking about things that I don't just speak about on the podcast. This is more free form. This is more like an update. This is more like documenting like what is on my mind right now, what are some updates, and sharing it in a way that there are lessons that I can encapsulate, like there are lessons that I can transmit and ideas and insights about the journey and the process and the thoughts behind what's like what I do, the thoughts behind the scenes of what I share posts like invisibly and whatnot. So all of this is part and parcel of so I want to call it like Travel Tuesday. It was like perfect because, well, yesterday was Travel Tuesday. Today is Whole Wealth Wednesday, but I'm doing like just a combined session right now where, yeah, I didn't do it yesterday. And for some reason there was like great resistance. And, I feel like I'm like, yeah, there's like something even like I'm really, really becoming so much more wanting to be much more professional, if that makes sense. So not just like a hobbyist, not just like a dabbler, not just someone who's kind of like iffy on it, but actually truly like what like because I'm recognizing that yes, there might be some subconscious blocks there where I say that I'm wanting to do this and I'm committed to it, but then yet there's like these layers and these excuses, right? It's like as I'm saying these things, I'm like, I can recognize there's these excuses baked into what I'm saying. And also, even like last week, and I was saying, I kind of gave myself a free pass mentally. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, this is like a free pass. If I do it, I know, like, I'm giving myself like like, in some way, that's good. It's like, I'm not, like, there's a certain sense of like, taking the lid off the pressure cooker or something. I'm not like so pressured where I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to do this. Like, I'm not that kind of like a rigid type of person that has to be like, this is like a hard deadline or whatever. But at the same time, it's good to have structure, especially if you're going to be a business owner, you're going to be building a company. Obviously, there has to be some structure and you have to be the one to enforce them, especially if obviously you're leading yourself. So this is where a lot of this learning curve comes in and a lot of this self-led, management of self where you have to enforce your own accountability. If no one else is telling you you have to do this and there's like no one actually giving you like legitimate like deadlines or like, okay, if you're the one building something and there's no one telling you to do it, it's just coming from you. Yes, there needs to be a certain structure. So this is all like just observation and just like witnessing who you actually are as you're doing things. So yeah, as I'm saying, last week, I in the back of my mind kind of gave myself this free pass, but I felt like immediately disappointed because with myself because I was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I just record that? So it was like Wednesday, right? Last week. I'm thinking yesterday I could have just done the freaking call or like a Zoom recording in my hotel room before like I took the train. And then obviously I was like, I was like in travel mode and I was like obviously had different things I was doing and um more on the go than like say if I'm just at home. But that's not really an excuse. I also have a lot of downtime, quite frankly. And a lot of that downtime was maybe not spent the most efficiently either. So this is like getting more things done quicker and actually doing things in a more efficient manner. And also prioritizing the things like that actually matter to you. So like if I truly, truly am committed to the masterclass, and this is part of what I consider building a company and getting to know myself and like my voice and clarifying what exactly my message is, then yes, this would be something that I make important to me enough that I'm like, I'm going to set this as like the big thing in the schedule in the day. I'm going to do this first and foremost and make sure this gets done around all the other little knickknacks and like things that, obviously you have to do, but they can just be worked around that. And it really comes down to this conscious feeling of like, you know what, there's something in me that was not totally committed. There was also something in me that wanted to, there's a certain thing is like, maybe I don't really want to be seen right now. I mean, not really be seen, but it's like hiding in a sense. So it's like, even though I show up and I post and I'm like, I was doing like the weekly master classes in that week, I was like, yeah, but I could kind of post, but I mean, like I'm trying to really delve into like what was I actually thinking? I was like, I thought it'd be so cool as well because it's kind of like you get to see a bit of the journey. It's like, okay, well, I would have like this record of like, okay, well, here I am. I'm like in a different location right now, and this is just um part of the it's just kind of like life unfolding itself. So that's the whole thing, like let the story write itself. So then even if I just do a face to camera talking type of video, it's still like an update as to that week. So it's like that week will never happen again, right? Because it's like the river never flows the same way twice. Like every moment in life is precious because it's like that saying in Japanese. It's like ichigo ichi. It's like every moment only happens once. So it's so nice to have like even like a weekly encapsulation of like even just a moment in time where it's like, okay, this week, what's happening? What's the lens of this focus? And then having the travel Tuesday and then the Wednesday, whole wealth Wednesday, even just an hour of every day, just having that focus and just to talk to the camera or like share what's on your mind and like whatever, because it's video, there's also a bit of like that setting. It's like, oh, where are you right now? And like what's going on? It's a bit different and whatnot. So it's like just having that and obviously like whatever I was actually thinking in that day on that day or that time that I'm posting or sharing or like filming, it's like that's like a moment in time captured. It's like what's that called? That's like that time machine. So that's part of it that I really liked. That's baked into that quality of like posting, whether even if it's not even a vlog per se. It's just like what was I wearing that day? And like I don't know, like all these elements. It's like it just goes into part of that, it's not really a diary, but it's like that time machine as and it's also the progression of the journey. So like when I look back at all the videos over time, it's kind of like let the story write itself, progressing to the Serefair Conservatory. It's like as I do these whole wealth and travel Tuesday and Wednesday master classes. They really started off as like me trying to do like a live call with people. And then because it was like realizing that okay, people weren't actually showing up. So I'm just gonna talk to myself on like direct to camera and just actually upload it to my YouTube. And I was like, okay, well, this has kind of just taken on its own form now, taken on its own journey just by being open to like, you know, what comes through at any given time. So like I start with one idea, but then the idea kind of shifts and it progresses and it becomes something different, like it shape shifts, right? And it kind of becomes something more true over time. Like it gets refined and like purified in a way. Like it's like, you know, it's like any it's like I'm thinking of like one of those like a stone or rock or something. It's like all the becomes like smoother, just by wear, like the erosion or whatever. It's like all the excess kind of gets rubbed away. It's like the diamond or something. So it's like you're uncovering the diamond within just through sheer process of repetition and like going through the process and then like tweaking it here and there and then getting like course corrections, right? So I see this all as like this co-creation with like the universe. When you get an idea and then you move with it, and then the next idea comes, and then maybe something prompts you to do this instead, and then this happens. So this is all like a journey for me. It's like more like an thing of like process of like unfolding. It's like, oh, interesting. What? And so here I am. I arrived back from travels just like a couple days ago, and I noticed I've been like very, very resistant to doing this Tuesday and Wednesday masterclass, and whether that's like just like falling out of that flow, that just like general like it's like that pattern interruption. It's like, okay, so I'm abroad for that week and I'm not doing my vlog for, the reason and excuses I've just listed. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm maybe in the back of my mind, I'm giving myself a free pass that, if I kind of do my weekly masterclass sessions, great. If I don't, then maybe not. But it was really also this feeling that why didn't I? Like, why couldn't I have just done it? And then the next day, even on the Wednesday, I moved to another location and I had just taken the train. I was kind of like still in this like transit mode, like this liminal state of like not really being fully here or there. And and even then I was like, well, I could have just taken a room like an hour or so in the day. And then I was like in a different location and I could have just started doing like my master classes, right? So this is really where it's like, is your conviction within yourself, is your commitment strong enough that it overrides whatever external variables might pull you out of that committed state where, sometimes when there's like a shift or a change in your routine or something outside happens, it's very easy to give yourself a free pass. It's very easy to be like, oh, well, today, like, it's like, this is like this is like a break. This is like something outside the norm, if that makes sense. Rather than be like, no, I am anchored in my commitment, no matter what. It's having that strong anchor within yourself, right? Because you are the one who decides. You are the one who you are really, it's just you who gets to decide and who can actually create that decision. And because I think subconsciously I was giving myself that idea that like I have an out. When you give yourself that out, that permission to like, I don't have to do this right now, that's where you fall down this slippery slope of like, well, then I just won't do it. And then you make up like these subconscious excuses, whether you're aware of them or are not on the conscious. And the next thing you know, it's like that's where that resistance comes in because you don't have that strong conviction inside of you. Whereas in all the other days that I was like just doing it, I was like, I had that strong conviction. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I know how I'm going to do it. And, and then suddenly when that container, like some of the variables changed, suddenly it felt like, because it's like, I just kind of just like was like uprooted with it, if that makes sense. So this is where like you have to be very, very strongly anchored so that no matter what, you don't make excuses and you don't let other external forces pull you away from your commitments. So this was like great observation and feedback for me specifically, especially with building a company, because you realize like, yeah, it starts from you within and all these little micro ways that you're actually maybe giving yourself like these outs or like, yeah, I'm going to give myself a pass here. It shows up. And that's exactly why I did not post last week. And then just yesterday, I was already back. I was back for like, I arrived back on Monday. So obviously I have plenty of time to do my travel Tuesday on Tuesday. It's just an hour long, right? And not even like whatever. And I I mean, it's interesting because when you talk yourself out of something one time, it's very easy to do it a second time. And that's where you can very easily like break your streak, if that makes sense. So I had a bit of a streak going. And that's not really how I'm thinking about it because I don't like to think like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to keep a streak. It's really just like this appointment that I have set with myself. Like Tuesdays, I do my masterclass related to Travel Tuesdays. And then Wednesday, I do my masterclass related to Whole Wealth Wednesdays. And even today is Wednesday and it's already like now it's like 11:25 p.m. Wait, when did I begin this? It's been almost an hour already. I don't even know. But regardless, so I'm like just getting this done in like the nick of time for Wednesday. But at the same time, it's like I didn't do yesterday. But that's another thing. If you do fall off the wagon, so to speak, if you do slip up and then you need to just get back on, it's like beat yourself up about it too much. Don't like think, okay, well, it's already like, you know, I already kind of broke the chain, whatever. It's like, no, it's like you learn from it and then you just come back on and then you continue going. And it's like, yeah, there was an interruption because last week I didn't post and then yesterday I didn't post either. And then now I'm kind of like doing it last minute. And but it's like, yes, I know that I'm gonna feel good about the fact that I just did it now. And then I'm actually documenting and I'm talking about it. I'm actually reflecting and not just because I've obviously reflected on it in my mind, but now I'm actually saying it out loud, which is actually a wholly different process. And this is actually the third point that I want to bring up that you got to just actually move. Like you got to not be in your head so much. So, every time, I realized, like, even just in the last couple days, even last week, actually, when I was not doing my masterclass, it's like I had so much time where I could have just done it, but I was more like in my head. I was more like, just this is where the thing is like sometimes you can just be so caught up in your head that no one knows what's going on in your head. You're not sharing anything. You're not actually saying it out loud. You're not actually like showing who you are and you're not actually like capturing anything. It's just all in your head. So yes, okay, there's something going on, like there's some reflection going on, there's some processing, right? So thinking about it is great, but when you actually put it out and like create something from it and get it out of your head, like speak it, write it, say it, share it, post it, it's this visibility that's not just about visibility, it's not just about posting content. It's about the fact that you turn your inner wisdom and your experiences and your knowledge into something that actually has value. And you turn it into something that actually has like a, what's the word for it? It's like you convert something that is like, what's that word I'm trying to think of? It's like that activation. It's like that late turning something latent and turning on the switch. So it's like, when I'm trying to think of something with like coal, like when you have like coal and then like, what am I trying to think of right now? Okay, I can't think of the exact analogy I'm trying to think of, but it's like that thing where it's like you have the raw material, but until you actually take that raw material and process it into something, it doesn't actually have a form, if that makes sense. Like think about like the shirt you're wearing. The raw material, the raw substance, great and all, sure. But until someone actually takes that and like has like, whatever machinery, equipment, or process occurs that turns into something wearable that you actually can use and like becomes like a different form from the raw material, it's not activated, if that makes sense. Like this process of activation, it's not like the switch has not been turned on. So this is like, there's so many different examples, like water, unless you're actually channeling that into like a resource, right? Okay, great, there's water, but what do you do with the water? People bottle it up into this, bottle it up. You can use it as like hydropower, using water as like a power source, water as like as an ingredient and whatnot, water to like cook or do cooking with, right? All right. And then like water when you boil it can then it like transforms the raw state into something that becomes like has a different value, has a different function, has a different it's like activated into a different form. So it's like the same substance, but let's face it, like when you think about like just anything really, even like a diamond, okay? Diamonds that come from the earth or whatever. Okay, I don't really know the process, but when it actually comes to like that final form that people pay for, that people pay like thousands or whatever people pay for, the range, whatever, from its raw substance that, you just found in the earth, from that raw material. And this is not even like about the valuation of it. It's more just the idea that like the raw substance is a different entity than when someone takes their creativity, their process, their method, their churning it through their machinery or whatever under transformation it undergoes to become like this final form that becomes like a product, not just a product, but like something that has a different meaning or value or different value in form, right? Like, do you get the meaning, like the point I'm trying to make here? So it's the same as your ideas, your raw ideas that are just simply in your head. Like, obviously, just the thoughts you have and like whatever reflections you have and whatever you might do, just, say on your own within yourself is not the same as when you actually churn it out in whatever method or process or machinery you're using to do this. So if I'm actually thinking of like the methodology, it's like, okay, so I have like these thoughts in my mind. Like even just yesterday, the whole of today, really, it's like I have like all these thoughts within me, and sometimes it's just like in my head. And have you ever like realized that you're just like sitting and like you just having a conversation with yourself, but none of it actually gets out? And then you're like, oh frick, I didn't even capture any of that. And somehow it feels like this feeling of like a loss, not only like a loss of it, like feels like something that just was not optimized. Like something wasn't like catapulted into something like the next level, like activated, brought into activation, right? Because there's raw material and resources all around us. Like it's an abundant universe. So what do you do with those raw material and resources? And I always feel this great sense of like something sitting latent within me, or this sense of like when I'm not sharing, when I'm not speaking, when I'm not actually putting that into something like whether it's writing or converting that into a message or content, if you will, or just like doing something with it, creating something from the raw material into like that, like activated, like turning on the switch and like making that into something, you know what I mean? That analogy of like taking the raw thought and like doing something with it so it becomes has a different value through that. So it's like whether you do something like you start blogging about something, you start, you share about something, you create something with your internal knowledge or your wisdom, your experiences, your process, your internal state. Okay, great. So what? It's just there. It's like it doesn't matter. It's like that's the thing. It's like to actually get things out is a skill in itself. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but for me, even just um like okay, so it's very easy sometimes for me to just talk, to just be in dialogue in general. Like if there's another person, I'm generally a very communicative, like talkative type of person. So I can just very easily free flow and just like free talk and talk about things. But it's like not captured. I've always been like, I want to just start recording conversations and things because that's like I'm like just spitting all this wisdom and like gems and like just all these like ideas and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I recorded that. I'm like, I wish I captured that somehow, I wish I like grasped that and like contained it somehow and I had something I could use it, like turn it into something useful, like that churning, right? Turning a diamond into like its final form, taking the water, the natural resource, and turning that into a final form. You know, all these, taking the cotton or whatever and turning that into the final form. It's like taking the raw resource and the material and converting it into something that actually has value to the human being, right? To It has a different value than just the raw context because there's a certain like energetic waste, if you will. Like if you're just having all these ideas and things, maybe you're just maybe you're not capturing it, you're not containing it, you're not turning it into value, not churning it out into something that actually becomes a different form. You're not activating it, you're not taking it to a higher level, you're not elevating the state of it. So in many ways, this is what me doing these master classes are. It's actually getting it. It's like this practice, and I realize like I'm quite like I'm kind of almost like the start of the staircase, right? Because there's so much more like progression that can actually come from this. Because right now it's almost like just taking the very raw material, which is me just actually recording stuff, right? So which I'm not necessarily just recording when I'm just in everyday life, or I'm just like in conversation, I'm not thinking about it, or I'm not like, oh darn, I should record that, I should come, but you just don't do it, right? And then so it's like when I have this very intentional space where I just start talking. I just allow myself to free flow and talk whatever's on my mind and whatever's coming out. It's a certain containment. So even just having structure around it, like this hour-long session, and then it's obviously recorded on this Zoom call, and then I upload it to my YouTube, and then it's there, and then people can watch it if they want. Cool. But also it's just for me, it's like this containment. It's like this idea that like these thoughts and messages are coming through in raw form and it has a contained space. So that for me is like my travel Tuesday, whole wealth Wednesday. I set aside an hour of time during the day. And at first I was kind of like setting a very specific time, but then I realized I kind of gave myself a little bit of leeway. And maybe that's where a little bit slippery slope came in. Where I was like, okay, at first I had a very specific time slot. And then that kind of evolved. I'm like, well, okay, maybe I didn't, something I was busy, I didn't get it done at that time. I'll just do it later on in the evening or whatever. And so as long as I still got done within that day, perfect. And so now, I mean, I think like that still works for me. Like that still works. I'm just going to do it sometime during the day. I don't think it has to be a specific time each day. But at the same time, it's like recognizing that no matter what, it's like setting that strong commitment. It's like not letting external forces per se, or letting like the very nuanced excuses that can come through, or the subconscious free pass that you can sometimes give yourself in the moments where you're feeling some resistance or you're feeling like this. Like it's so easy to just return to like, oh well, I don't have to do it. I don't want to. But you know what I mean? You actually have to almost get yourself into this state and active way of being where it's like, I'm going to do it because I'm going to actively channel this into something more valuable. And that takes energy. Like quite frankly, it looks like I'm just laying in bed right now. Like I'm just whatever talking. But actually there's a very like almost like a energetic thing that's like coming through right now. It's like I'm like having to like actually infuse a lot of energy into actually getting out thoughts that I'm trying to put into words right now, like the articulation of it. It's like a transmission, if you will. And this is where like you turn what is like just in your internal mind and state. When you're thinking, it's a different process than when you're speaking aloud. So it's actually making that more habitual and in a way that is captured and contained, because it's easy to just talk. I mean, for me, it is like just at least in everyday life, just talking, having dialogue, whatever. But containment is an entirely different process because it's not contained, right? Whether you're like, okay, let me be so intentional right now and record this dialogue, and that's the thing. It's like, like create content during the day, it's not creating content for me. It's about that containment. It's about activating something from its raw form into something that actually has different value. It changes the energy of something, actually gives something more, because you're highlighting something and you're capturing something. It's like when you take a photograph in that one snapshot of that 1 millisecond or whatever it is, that one moment, you've highlighted whatever you've just captured in that picture. You can be taking any freaking ordinary object or whatever. Okay, and like, okay, that object existed before that photo and after that photo. But in that moment that you captured it, it's like you just created, it's like not just art, it's like containment. You captured that moment in time, in that specific moment, you know, it's that idea of like that's another idea of like taking the raw energy and now you've tweaked it, you turned it on. You've done something where you've now taken something that was just there, the raw material, the existent state. Yeah, sure, everything's just existing, right? Now you've suddenly captured it and it's become like it's taken on new meaning. That particular frame, whatever you just captured, that particular moment, that is the container. The photograph is the container, and that specific moment that you captured is the form. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Like that's it. Like whatever medium or form or way is happening in, it's this idea of like, I don't even have the words from it. It's like taking the diamond in the rough and making it like shine. It's like you're the process of creating something with it. Okay, like I don't have the words for it. It's like more visual in my mind right now. It's like making sense in my mind. And that's the thing. It's like taking those ideas and those thought processes and actually turning that into something that actually has value, like in the physical world. It's like this transmission from the ethers into like the physical kind of thing. It takes a lot of energy actually. When I do these live calls and these master classes, I often find like I am like putting a lot of energy into it. Like how do I explain it? It's like being on. It's like you have to like your mind, like I might be lying down right now, but my mind has to be very engaged in a way. Like, anywho, so what I'm trying to say right now is like so different format, different medium, but same thing, same kind of process. It's like whether you're taking a photograph, it's like right now I'm capturing it through this video right now. This is the containment, and it's more like I'm speaking. So it's like not necessarily just an object that you're photographing. It's like I'm speaking because for me it's more about the ideas. It's like the thought leadership. It's like the channeling of what's coming through and translating that into something that is getting captured and contained and can then and this even can be like a raw material in itself, because I mentioned like this is very much more like a raw unedited video. It's me just kind of almost like just pouring out my thoughts, like brain dumping in a way, like a free flow subconscious like stream of consciousness type of session, whatever you want to call it. And so there's a lot of like raw energy here as well, while I'm still containing it in a way. There is further refinement that could happen, and that's the whole point. It's like there's like a continual tweak and refinement that like kind of changes the energy and also the product, if you will. Like there's so much I can like there's so much more that can come. There's so much evolution and like even like what's the word I'm looking for, like a refinement, if you can. Like if you're thinking of like a diamond being refined over time, it's like that's the exact same thing. It's like beyond just taking like the raw ideas and thoughts, it's like containing it and then actually churning it out into something beyond its in its initial state. So yeah, you gotta just sometimes just have that reduce that delay and that lag between when you have ideas and you actually just do something with it, right? So moving and building a company, because that's like my goal right now. That's like my whole focus. In fact, I'm like I'm like yeah, I just feel like I'm in this zone. It's like getting 100 times more visible, if that makes sense. Like becoming, repeating myself so many times in the very things that I'm like just so like in a way passionate about talking about, like the topics that I love to talk about, that I talk about anyway, right? In everyday life. It's now just like having this process of containment for it so that it's actually captured somehow, so that the raw material somehow gets activated and processed and like shifted into something beyond just what it is. Like just from existing per se, just like being like, oh, okay, it's this, whatever, and actually making it into something that has, you know, value. Okay. So like turning the raw material into a a thing. Okay, that's the best thing. Yeah, I'm sure like the words right now are just like have yet to be refined more. What I'm trying to say, like I get what I'm saying. And um yeah, there's like way more that I want to talk about this, but right now I feel like the main things about I actually wanted to get across and through feels complete right now. Um it's like whatever I wanted to talk about, if I had done a master class yesterday as well, and then so this is the thing where just get back on the wagon. If you feel like you've fallen off or you've jumped off somehow, or you just kind of giving yourself a slide and you let yourself kind of become lackadaisical about it, just get back on. There's no, you don't have to make a story about it. You don't have to let it mean anything. You don't have to like make a big deal out of it. Just get back on. Just get back into the flow and be like, okay, well, here is travel, or not travel, there's a whole Wealth Wednesday. And yeah, didn't do Travel Tuesday yesterday, but it's kind of embedded in here. It's kind of just a whole mishmash of the last week and this week, kind of just the updates, what the heck happened in between. And it's like, yeah, I'm still continuing this. I still enjoy doing my pod. I still enjoy capturing the raw material and the ideas, doing this containment exercise because it doesn't necessarily happen in like just all the moments that I'm not actually just picking up my some kind of recording device and like filming it or recording it and all this like all of this wisdom and experiences and like the gemstones that I'm just like living and experiencing and like spitting out on moment to moment basis essentially. And just through my experiences, right? It's like using all of it as something that it's like I just feel a very, very strong pull to like contain it and to record it. And this hour is kind of like that place that I can just do it and get it off of my mind because a lot like quite frankly, I don't feel at peace. I don't feel at peace when I have this in the back of my mind. I'm like I didn't record my thing. And this is not like something like oh, I have to do it. It's like something that I just feel like I don't feel settled until I do it. It's like it's almost like when you're, whatever exercise you might do, maybe you journal, maybe you do this, whatnot. For me, this is like my exercise and like reflection. And not only reflection, but like doing like an update or like just reflecting on life and like having that process of the journey and also and whatever it's like my whole thing is let the story write itself. So when I feel the pull to do something, it's like unless I do it, there's like a feeling of like distress or like anxiety or like this feeling of like dissonance, like haha, I don't feel like I like there's something I still need to do. And so right now it's like 11:45 p.m. at night, however long I've been talking for. It's this feeling of like I'm like I can finally sleep well tonight because I feel like I just got this all off my chest. And instead of just thinking about it, being like, oh crap, I didn't do it last week. And then here was Tuesday and I didn't do it yesterday either. And then now it's Wednesday. And then the whole day I didn't do it either. And now am I going to do it? Maybe I just stopped doing it. Like that actually crossed my mind. I was like, maybe I just, whatever. Maybe I just stopped doing this thing. But I'm like, why would I like, I don't want to stop doing it. I actually like doing it. I want to do it. And it's like, I'm making all these stories and these excuses in my head as to why I would not do it anymore. And even if I'm just like laying in bed right now, it's like I'm not having to show up formally, wear anything in particular, as like I never really have anyway. Like a lot of times I've just been in my bathrobe, wherever. Not even like just like laying down still. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even feel like I have to sit upright for this either. It's like I'm just allowing myself to talk, which you know what? A lot of times, like, yeah, my mouth is constantly like moving. I'm constantly talking. That's the thing. It's like in my daily life, I'm the kind of person that's like very, very talkative. I'm very, very like yeah, it's like I'm like the Energizer Bunny. So for me to actually just sit down and do this 1 hour of actually recording something and letting these thoughts free flow through me, it's not really anything different from like as I am in my natural life, but it doesn't actually mean that I'm recording anything, right? So it's actually containing it, channeling it, and putting through into something. It's like very, very therapeutic for me. And actually, there's something in that because It's the story writing itself, and there's like a progression occurring. There's a progression, and I'm literally trying to building a company right now. So I'm very, very aware that getting 100 times more visible than I think I am. And I'm also wanting to actually post more. Like I'm actually wanting to get even more visible. So not even just like on YouTube, but like everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Substack. I don't know, start a blog, right? Like a written blog, an email list. Yeah, I want to start like writing emails. I want to start getting like a funnel where I can like have people sign up for my emails. I can just like send stuff to them directly. So kind of like a blog, right? So written content. And what else is there? What other channel? Like I just want to be on all the channels, like all the platforms. Like I want to write a book. I want to just like there's so many things that I just feel compelled to share and like so many things I actually like just want to talk about and even just like take the raw material that's like inside my head and like turn it into something visible, something like valuable, something useful, something that actually becomes like a form in itself, like a product, right? Taking the cotton and turning it into a shirt. Taking the raw material, taking the water and making that into like an energy source. You know what I mean? It's like, is this not like a primal, like almost like a human, what do you call it? Like a motivator? It's like this production. It's like this thing is like taking something and like churning it into something else. Like I don't know if that's like just me, but I think like I think there's always something within you that has this desire to create. Whatever way that you express yourself, there's a desire to create, and do it like even not just as a hobby, like do it as like a devotional practice, something that you actually like just feel very like it's like a passion of yours, like something you can do over and over and over and over again and over again and like not get tired of it. It's like almost like a part of your DNA. It's like part of your soul. For me, that's always been like communication. That's like talking. That's like sharing ideas. That's like taking thoughts and turning them into form. This is like, I would say in many ways, like a part of my zone of genius. It's like that idea of like what I naturally do, what I naturally enjoy doing, what I can do all day. In fact, like I do mostly all day. And actually just showing up being seen more, being more visible, 100 times more, 10,000 times more than you think you're doing right now. Because I promise you, whatever's going on in your head is not actually visible on the outside until you actually find the way to make it visible, to turn it into something, an output. And that takes energy. It takes an energetic state of being. Because right now, I tell you, it's taking a lot of energy to actually just say all these out loud. It is so much easier to just have it in my head. It's not even bother to do anything with it. To like whatever, I don't have to record this. Whatever, I'm not going to show up on camera and talk about this and actually gather my thoughts and turn it, find the words to put to it and like articulate it and then like um sit with it for like however long I've been talking now and like actually get that completing it until I get that feeling of completion, right? But there's also this immense sense of like relief. I'm like, whew, I got that off my chest. Oh, thank goodness. Like that is out of me right now because it's not like just sitting dormant in me. It's like this feeling of like having like this storm brewing in my chest and it's like not, there's no way like an outlet for it to come through. So this is like my channel of expression. It's like, painting. It's like writing. It's like playing music, whatever your form of artistic expression is, creativity. This is one form for me. It's the communication aspect. It's the speaking words to the ideas and to what's going on within. And, a very, very important aspect and value for me in life is doing what I feel called to do. It's being in alignment with my internal compass. It's like being in like synergy, in coordination, and like a certain flow with what am called within to like bring to life, if that makes sense. So whenever that is not the case, and I feel like I'm kind of almost acting out of alignment, or I'm almost like resisting it, or I'm almost like subconsciously like almost giving myself a back end door, being like, oh, I don't have to do it. Like I'm making these excuses, like these little like nuanced, like, maybe I don't know, a little, all those like little noises in your head that go like that end up maybe, on the surface when you look at your action, your behavior, your output, or your outcome, or the actual productive production. You're like, what actually happened there? When I look at last week, I'm like, what actually happened? I didn't record my masterclass. Like, what was it going on? And when I like kind of really delved into that and like paid attention or just like listened, I'm like, yeah, it's because subconsciously I gave myself a way out. Subconsciously, I was not really like fully in it. And also subconsciously, I was like had all these little excuses, like these little like, oh, this and then like that little whiny, like that voice, right? And like, well, I don't have this. I don't like, so what? So what? It's like you can still record your talking to camera video as you normally do. Why didn't you do that? You had time. You could have done it. You didn't. Why didn't you do that? Because I gave myself a way out. Yeah, I gave myself a way out, and I wasn't truly mean, I wasn't actually truly intending to do it. Maybe I don't know, but either way, it's like I feel so much better that I just recorded this now and that I have it, and that I just allowed it to come through and like to because a lot of times I feel like I'm just transmitting. It's like I'm just like a vessel, like a channel for things to just come through. So that's really what all this is right now. And then the container, the containment of it is, as makeshift as it feels. This just is a Zoom call, a Zoom recording, and then uploading to YouTube. No fancy equipment. Just on my laptop right now. I'm just laying in bed. I'm in my hoodie. I'm literally just like, there's I'm not talking on a microphone. I'm literally just on my computer, on my laptop, and whatever the external sound and microphone system is on my laptop that's what's picking up my sound right now. So it's like just transmitting it any way I can in a very makeshift fashion and then uploading to my YouTube. There's no rhyme or reason. There's not even like a if this is not even like a feeling of like I'm doing this for this particular reason. It's like a very intrinsic motivation. It's like this, like I'm just led by soul. Like I'm just led by this intrinsic innate need to just get this off my chest, to share it in some way. And not just like in the free form, like raw material of just being in like random dialogue during the day or talking or conversation, but actually contain like intentional containment. That's the word. Intentional containment. I love that. It's like this intentional capturing somehow. And then like I know that at some point there's gonna be some kind of like a next level, like a next progression. It's gonna like become a more refined process. And there's more refinement and tuning that's going to come of this. It's like the raw content right now. It's like the raw material. It's almost like I'm mining the resources. I'm like mining my mind and like the resources and like all of the ideas that come to my, being like the energy, the energetic source that like all these ideas are coming to, and like mining that, churning that, taking the raw resources and like turning that into content somehow, like turning that into something valuable, turning that into like the gold mine of that, if you will. So I'm like very, very well aware of that right now. And right now it feels quite complete. It feels like I've said my piece. It feels like I've said what I wanted to say, what I need to get off my chest right now. And despite not posting for like the entire last week, well, I did post. I just didn't do I did like the podcast posts, but I didn't do my masterclass videos, which are obviously lengthier and do require a lot of energetic input. That's a thing. It's not just like me rambling yes, it is in ways, me rambling to the camera, but actually showing up, like turning on the camera, having this contained time. It takes more energy, a different kind of energy than you might imagine. Like it takes a different kind of energy than not doing so. Like it's to just have it sitting in your mind and be like, oh yeah, it's in there somewhere. Actually have that output and put it into words and like have it captured on video and whatnot. It's a different method. It's a different yeah. And so even like I just feel like my energetic being is like more becoming a lot more like just doing this as like a habitual thing, as a pattern beyond because my YouTube podcast I just record, I don't turn the video on, I just record the audio for it, right? So that's a different intent, not even intent, but like that's a different way of showing up than it is when I'm doing these like hour-long master classes or whatnot. And I'm going into more depth and more into like the nuances behind the thoughts and the patterns, like just more coming from like my raw thoughts and forms. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, so even though there's a whole week last week that I didn't really get that captured, and then yesterday I kind of didn't do that either, and then today I'm kind of doing it now at the kind of like the 11th hour. Literally, it is now just almost midnight. It's like 5 minutes to midnight, and I'm kind of just yeah, I'm gonna upload this soon, but yeah, I mean, just do it. Just do it. If you got off the wagon, just get back on and do the thing that you feel called to do. And like, don't put it off any longer, essentially. Yeah, just don't put it off and just do it, show up, get it done. And now it's like back in flow. Now it's like we can continue, get back into the regularly scheduled programming for this channel, which are my Tuesday and Wednesday masterclasses, the Whole Wealth Wednesday and the Travel Tuesday. It's just what they're called. It's just the name that I came upon. And I love it. And I like doing it. And it's like the season of life that I'm in that I just feel very, very called to have this space and this platform and this containment of this energy that just wants to come through right now. So, and then my leather story, no, the podcast for the Serefair Conservatory, like my 2 to 3 minute audio sound bites, that's still ongoing. So, there's like, it's like a fluid thing. It's like a dynamic process. It's like ever changing. It's alive. For me, it's not just like a static routine, like completely rigid thing that I just have in a very set way. It's totally alive. It's totally like forming as I go along, and it's free flowing. So I allow there to be structure around it, implementing some structure so that I actually enforce some rules around getting it done and actually showing up for it and doing it in the way that I want to. But there's also a fluidity and there's a sense of like open-endedness to it, where it's like I allow it to have a life of its own, whatever it wants to become. I'm as much observing it as it is kind of co-creating in a sense. It's like I'm allowing these ideas to co-create and pull me in the direction that it wants to go. It's like, what does this feel like? What kind of like, and I pivot, I change it up as I go along. I'm like, if I feel like this course correction or this tweak here, or like, actually I'm going to do it this way now, or, ooh, this is an idea that's just come through. I'm going to implement this. So this is really very much the way that it's like that I operate, that I just allow things to kind of like unfold of their own accord. And I kind of just go along with it. And so, yeah, going along with it, it's like just doing this intentional containment practice. And yeah, okay, this feels complete now. And I am going to let this be the end of it. For a time I feel like I never want to stop talking. Like I never want to stop these videos because I could just like talk all day. That's the thing. But anyway, I actually really love doing these. I don't know why. I can't say why. I just like it. I like it because also I feel very energized by it. I feel right now, I feel like I have more energy than when I was just thinking about it and like didn't do it. And I was like, oh crap, am I gonna do it? I had the resistance to it and I wasn't doing it. And then I'm like, oh. So now just having done it and like having spoken for like this past hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe, I don't really remember how long I've been talking now, but I don't really know how long I've been talking now, but I feel like a great sense of like fulfillment of peace within, of like this joy even. Like I feel joy. I feel excited. I feel like content. I feel excited. I feel like relieved. I feel like, whew, oh, I can like, yeah, it's like off my mind now. Just all the things, all the things. And yeah, so happy that I did this. And yes, I'm just doing it and not thinking about it is the way. Just stop thinking about it and just do the thing. Promise you, it's going to relieve so much. It's going to allow so much energy to come through because you're not suppressing it, you're not holding it within, you're allowing it to come forth. So, yeah, see you next week.